My elder sister was violated by bandits. To save her life, I agreed to take her with me when I married into the Shun mansion, never imagining she was already carrying the bandit's child. In the Shun mansion, my husband stayed in my courtyard every night, but the moment I conceived, he suddenly turned cold, showering my elder sister with tenderness and treating the child in her belly as his own flesh and blood. When my labor pains began, the midwife pinned my legs down ruthlessly, suffocating my baby to death inside me. Exhausted and on the verge of collapse, I watched my husband stand at my bedside, holding my elder sister's child in his arms. Madam gave birth to a son and died from a hemorrhage. To ensure the young master is well cared for, I hereby promote concubine Yi to be my legal wife. Shinji stared at me with icy indifference. You should consider yourself lucky. Lucky that I've spared you the humiliation of letting everyone know about your nightly trysts with the guards. Let this bastard go to the underworld with you, so you mother and son can be reunited forever. Thank you, my dear little sister. My elder sister sneered. If you weren't so kind and easy to manipulate, I would never have slipped into the Shun mansion so effortlessly. Now that I'm the new Lady Shun, I really owe you my gratitude. My eyes nearly split open with rage. So those so-called bandits were nothing but a lie. Shinji had cried wolf to cover his own heinous deeds. It was the flower festival on the 15th day of the second lunar month. My elder sister and I went out to enjoy the festivities, but we got separated in the crowd. She didn't return as the hours passed. Mother sent maids and servants to search for her, but they found nothing. As dusk fell, Master Shun arrived at the Yi mansion with my elder sister in his carriage. Her clothes were torn to shreds, and she clung to Mother, sobbing pitifully. One look at her state, and Mother knew exactly what had happened. My elder sister and I were not born of the same mother. Her birth mother was a concubine of Father's, who had died shortly after giving birth to her. It was Mother who had raised her with her own hands. If word of this scandal got out, Yi Yuna would be condemned to spend the rest of her life in a family nunnery, alone and forgotten. After all, she was the daughter Mother had raised for so many years. Though not bound by blood, their bond was deep. How could Mother bear to see Yi Yuna's life destroyed like this? If mother-in-law trusts me, Shinji said, seizing the perfect moment, let the second young lady marry into the Shun mansion alongside Fanghua. Though the Shun family is not among the wealthiest and most powerful, it will provide her with a safe roof over her head. At Shinji's suggestion, Mother made the decision on the spot. Yi Yuna would marry into the Shun mansion with me. I'm sorry to impose on you, son-in-law, Mother said, taking Shinji's and Yi Yuna's hands in hers. Not a single thought for whether I was being wronged. I was not surprised. To prove her gentleness and virtue to Father, Mother had always favored others over me. Once, I had swallowed every grievance just to earn a little more of Mother's attention. Now, I saw how foolish I had been. I watched the two lovebirds put on their show in silence. Only when they had finalized their scheme did I speak up slowly. When my elder sister went missing, how did she happen to meet you, Shinji? Where was she attacked by the bandits? How many were there? What did they look like? I dragged Yi Yuna's dignity through the mud in front of all the maids in the room. But she had been brazen enough to carry on such an illicit affair with Shinji. Her skin was thick enough that my little taunts hardly fazed her. Seeing that I was displeased, Mother hurried over to play peacemaker. Do this for your sister and for the honor of the Yi mansion. I agreed. The stage was set. If I refused, how could the actors put on their show for me? Besides, there was something I wanted from the Shun mansion. In the third lunar month, I married Shinji. Yi Yuna was carried into the Shun mansion in a small pink sedan chair fit for a concubine, not a wife. On our wedding night, Shinji held a wine jug, pouring cup after cup to get me drunk. I secretly emptied each cup into my sleeve. When he thought I was unconscious, he summoned a guard, whispered instructions, and left the room. As the guard reached for my collar, I grabbed his wrist in a vice-like grip. His eyes widened in terror when he saw that I was wide awake. Staring at him coldly, he knelt down, trembling like a leaf. Madam, spare me. If you want to live, do exactly as I say. I told him, don't try any tricks. Shinji will not risk offending the Yi mansion for a mere guard like you. I ordered him to amuse himself in the outer room for half the night before leaving. Early the next morning, Shunji climbed into my bed, reeking of cloying perfume, and pretended that nothing had happened. He had clearly just come from Yi Yuna's room. The smell made me sick to my stomach. The thought of what he had been doing made me even sicker. I feigned a groggy awakening. We should get up. We have to pay our respects to father and mother today. After breakfast, Shunji and I set off together. As soon as we stepped out of the courtyard gate, Yi Yuna hurried over to us. Sister, did you sleep well last night? I bowed my head to hide my laughter. Shunji had spent the entire night with her, leaving a fake groom to fool me. Now she was dying to gloat, but she couldn't reveal the truth. Her veiled innuendo made her look like nothing more than a clown jumping through hoops. You're in such a hurry, sister, I said, changing the subject. Did you come to pay your respects to me? I had no desire to listen to her subtle boasts. Yi Yuna stiffened all over. She had never expected me to demand that she perform the obeisance due from a concubine to her mistress. Mother had spoiled her rotten, in our family home. Her food, clothing, and daily supplies had been identical to mine. To gain mother's favor, I had never quibbled over such matters. This indulgence had made her forget her place as a concubine-born daughter. Sister still loves teasing me like this, Yi Yuna said, her face stiff with embarrassment. Of course. She was unwilling to acknowledge her status as a concubine in front of me, the moment she stepped into the Shun mansion with me. She must have already seen the position of lady of the house as hers for the taking. Let's go, Shunji said, cutting off the silent power struggle between Yi Yuna and me. Don't keep mother waiting. Madam is here. The old madam has been asking for you all morning, the old nanny guarding the courtyard gate said warmly, taking my hand and leading me inside as soon as we arrived at my mother-in-law's courtyard. Father-in-law and mother-in-law sat on the main hall. I took the teacup offered by a maid and presented it to them as a sign of respect. Shunji's and my marriage had been arranged by our elders when we were children. Over the years, mother-in-law had known that even though I had lived a peaceful life at home, I had never been truly happy. She had been urging Shunji to marry me as soon as possible. In my past life, after I married into the Shun mansion, she had loved me as if I were her own biological daughter. I chatted affectionately with mother-in-law while Shunji stood beside her, holding Yi Yuna's hand and exchanging secret glances with her. And who is this beside Jia? Mother-in-law asked. I was about to answer when Shunji suddenly pulled me backward. I stumbled, nearly falling to the ground. Mother, this is Fanghua's elder sister, Yuna. She married into the Shun mansion with Fanghua and is now my concubine. Shunji said. Mother-in-law frowned when she saw I had almost fallen, clearly displeased with Shunji. His words made her even angrier, and her tone turned sharp. Though the Shun family is not an aristocratic clan, we still uphold our rules and traditions. When a daughter-in-law pays her respects to her parents-in-law, where is the need for a concubine to rush forward and ingratiate herself? Before, you were Huara's elder sister, but now that you are a concubine, you must know your place and abide by the rules. Do not overstep the boundaries between superiors and inferiors. I knew mother-in-law was helping me establish my authority as the legal wife. My heart swelled with joy. I could do without a husband, but I would cling tightly to my mother-in-law's support. The Shun mansion might have been full of flaws, but it had given me a wonderful mother-in-law. Shunji wanted Yi Yuna. Fine. Then I would choose a mother for myself, a fair trade. I thought, no loss at all. Shunji sent me some calming incense, instructing me to burn it every night before bed. I ordered my trusted maid to buy a similar smelling incense to pass off as the real thing. The guard still came every night, and every night I ordered him to amuse himself in the outer room. Life was surprisingly comfortable. I no longer had to swallow my grievances like I did at my parents' home. And I was no longer the meek and agreeable woman I had been in my past life. Mother-in-law had said concubines must obey the rules, and I took those words to heart. Every morning at dawn, Yi Yuna had to wait outside my courtyard gate, ready to serve me and help me dress as soon as I woke up. Shunji, who had been spending every night tangled up with Yi Yuna, was also forced to get up early, rushing back and forth between our two courtyards. Of the four of us, I was the only one who got a good night's sleep. It didn't take long for Yi Yuna to crack under the strain. Within a few days, she knelt before me, begging for mercy. Yi Yuna was pregnant. The physician confirmed she was 2 months along. Seeing that I remained silent, Yi Yuna threw herself at my feet, clinging to my legs. Sister has always been the kindest person I know. Please spare the child in my belly. Master already knows the baby is not of the Shen bloodline. He will never let him compete with your child for the family's inheritance. I laughed coldly in my heart. In my past life, he had killed both me and my child, erasing every trace of my bloodline from this world. How could there have been any competition? Competing with ghosts? A faint smile tugged at my lips. Yi Yuna was right, I had always been kind-hearted, but this child had been branded a bastard even before his birth. It would be nearly impossible for him to ever gain a legitimate status in this family. As long as you don't regret it, I said. One morning, Shinji suddenly wrapped his arms around my waist as I got out of bed. Fanghua, we've been together so long. Why haven't you conceived yet? He placed his hand on my abdomen, stroking it gently. His touch was tender, but I knew he was plotting to trade my life for the sake of his beloved. Yi Yuna was already 2 months pregnant. If I didn't conceive soon, his entire scheme would fall apart. I leaned against his chest, twirling a strand of hair that had fallen onto my shoulder. The child in concubine Yi's belly, could it be that it's not yours, husband? The man behind me stiffened, his breathing growing uneven. How could you say that? Fanghua, you must still be half asleep. He dressed quickly and left the room in a flustered hurry, so even Shinji could feel fear that I would kill his precious child. In my past life, I had been terrified too during my labor, terrified that my baby would die, and die he had. Auntie, grandmother is furious. Yi Mingyu came running out of mother-in-law's courtyard, grabbing my hand and pulling me inside. Yi Mingyu was Shinji's elder brother's son. His parents had died in an accident years ago, leaving him an orphan. The Shen family doted on him excessively. These days, I had been visiting mother-in-law's courtyard often. And even this little dumpling could see how close we were. I picked Mingyu up in my arms and carried him into the courtyard. Along the way, the maids who knew what was going on filled me in on the details. Mother-in-law had found out about Yi Yuna's pregnancy, and the dates didn't add up. Shinji had begged his mother to give the child a legitimate name, but she had refused. The two of them had gotten into a terrible argument. I raised you for so many years. And this is how you repay me, you fool, mother-in-law shouted, pointing her finger at Shinji, her whole body shaking with anger. If I hadn't found out, would you have let that bastard inherit the Shen family's property one day? As soon as Shinji saw me walk in, he raised his hand and slapped me across the face. You told mother about this, didn't you, you spiteful woman? I let myself fall to the ground. My face didn't hurt, but my ankle did. I had twisted it when I stumbled. I looked up at mother-in-law, my eyes brimming with tears, my expression the picture of a poor, wronged maiden. Yes, it was me who had leaked the news, but would I ever admit it? Not in a million years. Only a fool would confess to such a thing. Auntie, Mingyu, who had been hiding behind the door, rushed out to shield me as soon as he saw Shinji slap me. The servant scrambled to help me onto a chair. I buried my face in a handkerchief, pretending to sob bitterly. Since marrying into the Shen mansion, I had grown incredibly close to mother-in-law. I spent more time with her than I did with Shinji. Every time I visited her courtyard, I would bring small trinkets for her maids. Having endured years of neglect, I had learned the art of currying favor. To put it more plainly, I was buying people's loyalty. My efforts paid off. Most of the people in this room were firmly on my side. Mother-in-law spun around and slapped Shinji hard across the face. Fanghua has never gossiped behind anyone's back in my presence. Even if she did tell me, it's because there was truth to it. Mother-in-law was so angry she could barely breathe. Nanny Wang helped her onto a daybed and patted her back to calm her down. How many days have you gone without coming to pay your respects or chat with me since marrying Fanghua? It's Fanghua who pities this old woman and visits me every single day. She told me that a man shouldn't be cooped up in the inner chambers all day. Now that you're married, you should focus on building your career. Today I finally find out the truth. You're so eager to play stepfather to a bastard whose father no one knows, and now you're talking back to me for that shameless woman. I wish I had never given birth to a son like you. He knelt before mother-in-law, pleading desperately, "Mother, Yuna is carrying my child, your own grandson. Get out." A teacup shattered on the ground in front of Shunji, soaking his robes and leaving him in a sorry state. "Husband, are you all right?" Yi Yuna hurried over at the sound of the commotion, dropping to her knees beside Shunji. "Mother-in-law, the child in my belly is Jius. We've loved each other for a long time. I conceived this child before our wedding day." "Sister," I said, staring at her belly in feigned shock and disbelief, "didn't you say you got pregnant because you were attacked by bandits outside? If you had told me earlier that you and my sister were in love, I would never have fought her for this position. What does it matter if I give her the title of legal wife?" Shunji's eyes lit up with hope. "Fanghua, you really mean that?" "Mother." Fanghua agrees, she. Shunji reached out eagerly to grab mother-in-law's sleeve. "Shut up." Mother-in-law slammed her palm on the table so hard the dishes rattled. "I told you to spend more time with Fanghua at the Yi mansion to build your relationship. I never imagined you had such deceitful plans. If you already had your heart set on someone else, why did you marry Fanghua in the first place? Why did you even bother to acknowledge me as your mother? Guards, throw these two out, get them out of here." She screamed. "Our Shen mansion is too small to accommodate such high and mighty guests." Shunji and Yi Yuna were driven out of the Shen mansion. Mother-in-law and father-in-law had been childhood sweethearts, deeply in love and devoted to each other all their lives. Their eldest son had also been a man of great devotion, holding love in the highest regard. Mother-in-law could never accept that her younger son was such a dishonorable man, after everything that happened. Mother-in-law held me tightly and wept. "I married you into this family because I wanted to dote on you. I never dreamed I gave birth to such an ungrateful, heartless monster." After Shunji left the mansion, the light faded from mother-in-law's eyes. I knew she still couldn't bear to part with her son. Driving him out this time was just a lesson, a punishment. After all, he was her own flesh and blood. Sooner or later, he would be allowed to come back. Since Shunji's return to the Shen mansion was inevitable, it would be better if I was the one to offer him forgiveness. A wronged woman who chose to endure in silence always garnered more sympathy. "Mother," I said softly, "I'm sure husband has had time to think things over these past few days. Why don't I go ask him to come home?" Mother-in-law squeezed my hand, her fingers trembling slightly. "You've been wronged so much, my poor Fanghua." Those words sounded painfully familiar. Back at my parents' home, I had always been the one to suffer in silence. When it came to dividing up things, I could go without, but my other siblings had to have their share. If I made a mistake, I was scolded for failing to uphold the dignity of a legitimate daughter and punished accordingly. If my sisters made a mistake, mother would punish me alongside them. To be fair, mother would always cry to me about how hard her life was in the mansion, begging me to be more understanding. And after every punishment, she would hold me and say, "You've been wronged." My poor Fanghua. Mother's love was like a soaking wet cotton-padded jacket. Wearing it made you cold, but taking it off left you even colder. I could feel that mother-in-law's love for me was different from my own mother's. I was overjoyed, yet I also felt a twinge of guilt for manipulating her feelings. But as long as Shinji remained in this mansion for one more day, I would have to stay on my guard against him for one more day. Forget it. If he came back and stopped scheming against me, I would turn a blind eye to whatever nonsense he and Yi Yuna got up to, even if they burned down half the mansion, as long as they didn't bother mother-in-law and me, for mother-in-law's sake. And for the sake of my own conscience. After being kicked out of the Shen mansion, Shinji had nowhere to go. He was now staying in a small house the Yi family owned in the city. Before I left, mother-in-law instructed me firmly, "Tell him if he sends Yi Yuna back to the Yi mansion, we'll let this whole thing go, otherwise, the Shen family will disown him for good." Mingyu whined and insisted on coming with me. He had been truly terrified by that slap the other day. "Grandmother, I want to go with auntie. Second uncle is so mean. What if he hits auntie again?" Coming from a 4-year-old little dumpling, those words warmed my heart completely. 45 Alley was a fair distance from the Shen mansion. The carriage jolted along for quite a while before finally arriving at the small house. Hearing the carriage pull up, Shinji came out with Yi Yuna in tow. Yi Yuna curtsied gracefully. "Sister, you've come. Are you here to take husband back to the mansion?" Shunji snorted loudly and turned his face away, refusing to even look at me. I had no desire to argue with him. If you come back this time, don't give mother-in-law any more reason to worry. Yi Fanghua, who are you pretending to be so virtuous for? If it weren't for you, mother would have let me marry Yuna a long time ago. All of this is your fault. With that, he roughly pushed me aside and grabbed Yi Yuna's hand, about to climb into the carriage. Grandmother said only second uncle can come back. Mingyu piped up, poking his head out from the back carriage. His voice was soft. But the two carriages were parked close together, close enough for Shunji to hear every word clearly. Yi Yuna, who had one foot on the carriage step, pulled out a handkerchief and began dabbing at her eyes. It's all my fault for offending you, sister, husband. You go back first. I don't mind suffering a little for your sake. It's just unfair to our poor baby. He hasn't even been born yet, and grandmother already dislikes him. Yuna, none of this is your fault, Shunji raged. It's all that evil woman's doing. She's been poisoning mother's mind with her lies. Yi Fanghua, how can you be so jealous and spiteful? What lies have you been telling mother now? You've had me thrown out of the mansion these past few days. Mother must be furious with you by now. Do you really think you can sit back and relax by pinning all the blame on Yuna? A crowd of townspeople had gathered around to watch the commotion. Taking advantage of the audience, Shunji twisted the truth, claiming that he had been driven out of the mansion because of me. If I don't go back today, let's see how you explain yourself to mother. If you've really thought this through, he said, sitting down on the steps and looking at me as if he were bestowing a great favor. Agree to take Yuna as my official wife, my equal, in front of everyone here. Then I'll be magnanimous enough to forgive you for all the trouble you've caused. And come back with you. I smiled brightly at him, catching him completely off guard. I could tell he thought I was about to give in. Who is this madman blocking my way in broad daylight? Nanny, go get the authorities at once, I shouted. Shunji spun around to glance at the crowd only to find that it was just him. Yi Yuna, me, Shen Mingyu, and a few nannies. You crazy woman. Before he could finish his sentence, Nanny Wang, who was standing right beside me, cut him off sharply. Exactly. Our mistress was out taking a stroll today when these two suddenly jumped out and blocked our way. They must be trying to swindle us out of money. With that, she pulled a purse from her waist, took out a few pieces of broken silver, hesitated for a moment, then threw the coins right at Yi Yuna's face. Take this money as an act of charity from our mistress. Everyone, move along quickly. Don't let them swindle you too. The townspeople, seeing that Shunji was clearly a stranger, scattered in no time. Before Shunji could recover from his shock, we climbed back into our carriages and drove away. Inside the carriage, Nanny Wang sighed deeply, still shaken by what had just happened. Thank goodness for your quick thinking, madam. If you hadn't tugged on my sleeve just in time, I never would have realized what you were planning. Master Shen is really something else. Why couldn't he have talked about this at home instead of making a scene in front of all those people? I watched him grow up since he was a little boy. I never thought he would turn into such a shameless man. The gossip sparked by Shunji's words would have destroyed the Shen mansion's reputation. Nanny Wang had been by mother-in-law's side for decades, ever since she was a young woman. She had watched mother-in-law and father-in-law build this mansion from nothing. It was their life's work. She would never allow it to be ruined. Still, Shunji was not completely stupid. He knew his chances of convincing me to agree were slim, so he had tried to pressure me by stirring up public opinion. What he hadn't counted on was that I would refuse to play by his rules and turn the tables on him instead. Grandmother, second uncle didn't want to come back. He even asked auntie for money. As soon as the carriage pulled to a stop, Mingyu had a servant lift him down, then scurried as fast as his little legs could carry him to mother-in-law's courtyard. He even turned around to look at me, his little face beaming with pride, clearly waiting for praise. What he said wasn't exactly a lie, but it certainly twisted the truth quite a bit. Still, I was more than satisfied with the result. Nanny Wang recounted the entire incident to mother-in-law in detail. When she heard how Shunji had tried to use the Shen mansion's reputation to blackmail me into submitting, mother-in-law seemed to accept the fact that he didn't want to come back. If he doesn't want to return, then so be it, as long as he doesn't end up dead somewhere. That's all I care about. I spent my days chatting with mother-in-law, watching Mingyu read and practice his calligraphy, and gossiping with the maids about all the interesting things happening outside the mansion. Life was peaceful and content. Shinji had taught me a valuable lesson. Showing mercy to your enemies is nothing but cruelty to yourself. One day, I was listening intently to a maid telling me about how Master Liu's son had gotten drunk and been dumped at a male brothel, when another maid came rushing in, panic written all over her face. "Madam, it's terrible. Everyone outside is gossiping that you're having an affair with a guard in the mansion." "Let's go to mother-in-law's courtyard," I said calmly. "We're about to watch a very interesting show." I didn't need to think twice to know who was behind these rumors. It was Shinji. Of course, I had been perfectly willing to pretend he didn't exist now that he was out of the mansion, but he just had to go and provoke me, forcing me to take revenge. As soon as I arrived at mother-in-law's courtyard, a servant came to report that my mother, the Lady Yi, had arrived. Mother was not alone. She was followed by Shinji and Yi Yuna. The room was quickly filled with people. Mother-in-law turned to me, her eyes filled with concern. "What is the meaning of all this?" Before I could open my mouth to explain, Shinji's voice rang out, loud and dramatic, as he fell to his knees and began wailing. "Mother, you've been tricked by her. She pretends to be virtuous and filial in front of you, but behind your back, she's a shameless whore. Everyone in the city knows it now. She's been sleeping with a guard in the mansion. She plotted to have me thrown out of the mansion just so she could hook up with her lover and take over the Shen family's property." Mother-in-law frowned deeply as she listened. Even I was exhausted by all these recent troubles, so I could only imagine how draining it was for her, an elderly woman. Seeing no one else spoke up, my mother stepped forward, grabbed my arm, and pleaded earnestly, "Fanghua, apologize to your husband. This is your fault. Even if you and Shunji had a falling out, you shouldn't humiliate him like this." "Mother, do you also believe I did such a shameful thing?" I wrenched my arm out of her grasp. "Before even investigating, you're throwing this dirty accusation on your own daughter. Am I even your biological child?" My mother looked stunned, clearly not expecting her always obedient daughter to rebel. She stared at me, at a loss for words. "That's enough, Chang'e," mother-in-law said sharply. "As a mother, you're acting unreasonably. How can you accuse Fanghua without knowing the truth?" She turned to me, her voice softening. "Fanghua, I've watched you grow up. Tell me, are these rumors about you true or false?" I knelt down. "Mother-in-law, I have never done the things my husband is accusing me of." "Good, mother-in-law believes you," she said firmly. "Yi Fanghua, what kind of spell have you cast on mother?" Shinji suddenly jumped to his feet, his face contorted with rage. "I originally wanted to spare you some dignity, but it seems you won't repent until you're staring death in the face." 3 sharp claps echoed through the hall. A guard was dragged in, bound hand and foot, and thrown to his knees. "Mother, I would never dare come back to confront her without proof," Shinji cried triumphantly. "This is the adulterer who's been sleeping with Yi Fanghua every night." I looked at the disheveled man. It was the same guard who had tried to climb into my bed on my wedding night. This was all Shinji was capable of. He truly thought he could defeat me with these childish tricks I had already seen through. What a delusion. Mother-in-law's eyes turned icy cold as she fixed her gaze on the kneeling guard. "Think carefully before you speak. Slandering the madam of the Shen mansion is a crime punishable by death." I did go to the madam's courtyard at night," the guard admitted, his voice trembling. I could see the joy flickering across Shinji's and Yi Yuna's faces, but their triumph was short-lived. The guard's next words sent them plummeting into despair. "But your ladyship, I never overstepped any boundaries. On the madam's wedding night, it was Master Shen who got her drunk and ordered me to go there. I may not be a learned man, but I know how precious a woman's innocence is. I slept in the outer room for half the night and then left. People were all afraid of death, and this guard was no exception. If he had lied and slandered me as Shinji had ordered, not only would mother-in-law never have let him live, but I wouldn't have either. He knew full well the difference between life and death." "You expect us to believe you just because you say so," Shinji shouted, refusing to accept defeat. "This guard is your lover. He's only lying to save his own skin." I often struggled to understand Shinji's thought process. He was simply too foolish. if I remember correctly, we have never consummated our marriage, I said, turning to kneel before mother-in-law. I begged to prove my innocence. This time, Shinji had truly enraged mother-in-law. He had no idea how hard it was for a woman to survive in this world. A single careless word from him could have ruined my life forever. My mother, who had been conspicuously silent while I was being wronged, finally spoke up, but her defense was not for me. Fanghua, for the sake of family peace, just endure this, she urged. Couples fight and make up. You and Jia will still have to live together in the end. Don't make this any uglier than it already is. Mother, he's pushing me to the edge, I cried, my voice breaking. If these accusations were true, do you really think he would spare my life? Mother, I would die. I wrenched my hand out of her grip. Her sharp nails scraped deep gashes into the back of my hand. No, you won't, Fanghua, she insisted frantically. None of this has happened yet. Mother-in-law stepped forward, cutting her off. Chang'e, have you lost your mind? Fanghua is your own daughter. It's all my fault, she said, her voice filled with regret. When he was a child, I thought he was clever and adorable, so I had the idea of marrying Fanghua to him. I begged you to agree to their engagement. I knew how hard it was for you to manage your family, and how you always sacrificed your own daughter to keep the peace. It broke my heart to watch, but I didn't feel I could interfere, so I wanted to marry her into the Shen mansion as soon as possible, so I could dote on her myself. Never in a million years did I think I would raise such an ungrateful, heartless monster. Now, if you value your precious family peace so much, take this scoundrel and Yi Yuna back to the Yi mansion with you. Don't sully the grounds of my Shen mansion. If you're willing to cast Fanghua aside, there will always be someone else who wants to cherish her. I froze in place. I knew mother-in-law was kind to me, but I never imagined she truly loved me like her own daughter. Shinji had failed to cherish this love and now he would pay for it. My mother was left tongue-tied by mother-in-law's scolding. But this is how we've always done things. If Fanghua just endures a little grievance, everything will be resolved. Yuna will have a home, Jia will come back to the mansion and be filial to you. Fanghua will only suffer a little. Wei Chang'e, I'll make this clear once and for all, mother-in-law said, her voice cold as ice. Now that Fanghua has married into the Shen mansion, she is my daughter. As for Shunji, if you like him so much, take him back to the Yi mansion. Whether you treat him as a son or a son-in-law is none of my business. Shunji was driven out of the Shen mansion again. This time, he didn't go back to the small house. My mother took him and Yi Yuna back to the Yi mansion. She blamed everything on me, unable to understand why I refused to endure a little grievance to resolve the situation, instead making such a spectacle of ourselves. Once again, the only masters left in the mansion were mother-in-law, Mingyu, and me. This time, mother-in-law had no more affection left for Shinji. She told the gatekeepers that if he dared to come back, they were to drive him away with sticks. He was no longer welcome in the Shen family. I had to admit, being the daughter of the Shen mansion was wonderful. What a blessed life Shinji had once lived. No need to wait on a man, just drinking tea, admiring flowers, and occasionally stirring up trouble. Shinji had grown accustomed to his smooth, easy life and had never appreciated it. Arrogant men like him deserved to suffer. The 10-odd years I had spent in the Yi mansion had not been in vain. Every move Shinji and Yi Yuna made was reported to me. I had thought Shinji would be more humble living in the Yi mansion, but to my surprise, he lived even more recklessly than he had in the Shen mansion. He occupied my old courtyard, ordering the servants around as if he were the rightful young master of the Yi family. The servant who brought me this news was sweating profusely. Miss, you must come back. If you don't, Master Shen will forget you're his legal wife. I ate the grapes mother-in-law had sent me, savoring their sweetness. This comfortable life had only just begun. I would be a fool to go beg him to come back. But he had schemed against me so many times. Just driving him away was too lenient a punishment. Do you remember Xiaotsue, the maid who was in my courtyard before I married Shinji? I asked. Yes, she offered to become Master Shen's concubine. So you sent her to the countryside estate, the servant replied. Bring her back, I ordered. Concubine Yi is pregnant and can't overexert herself. My husband will need someone to attend to him. Xiaotsue was a capable woman. It didn't take long for her to seduce Shinji. Yi Yuna was so enraged she wailed and screamed in the Yi mansion, demanding Xiaotsue be driven away. Shinji refused to let her go, and the two of them got into a physical fight. Shinji, worried about her pregnancy, held back and ended up with his face scratched. In the past, I would have been the one to suffer in such situations. My mother was skilled at resolving conflicts by making me endure grievances. Unfortunately for her, Yi Yuna was not me. What man doesn't stray? Just endure it, my mother told her, repeating the same words she had always used on me. She had thought the Yi Yuna she had doted on for so many years would be like me, enduring grievances for her sake. But Yi Yuna, who had rarely suffered any hardships in her life, refused to listen. I thought you truly loved me, mother, she shouted. Now that father is gone, you're flaunting your power as the mistress of the house. A foster daughter is never a real daughter. You'll never truly warm up to me. The usually quiet Yi mansion was filled with noise and commotion for the first time in years. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there to watch it in person. The chaos at the Yi mansion only lasted for a while. According to the servants, Shunji and Yi Yuna had reconciled. Xiaotsue still stayed by Shunji's side, but she was now just a nominal concubine, never daring to overstep Yi Yuna. I knew they must be plotting something again, but I never imagined they would be so ruthless. Mingyu snuck out of the mansion. He didn't return all day. Mingyu was missing. Most of the servants were sent out to search for him. Meanwhile, Shinji arrived at the Shun mansion with Yi Yuna again. Yi Fanghua, I entrusted the Shun mansion to you, and this is how you take care of my nephew. You can't even keep a child safe. You should step down and make way for someone more capable. Shinji, you must take responsibility for your words and actions, I said coldly. Bring Mingyu back now, and there may still be room for reconciliation. I was certain Mingyu's disappearance was related to him, but I had no evidence to prove it yet. Shinji seemed confident that Mingyu would never come back. He helped Yi Yuna, whose belly was now clearly swollen, step forward toward mother-in-law. Don't worry, mother, even if we lost one grandson, we still have another. If you want more grandchildren in the future, just say the word, I'll give you as many as you want. Mother-in-law was so angry she could barely breathe. I rushed to support her as she collapsed into her chair, tears of anger and fear streaming down my face. Nanny Wang, hurry and send for a doctor. Mother-in-law's voice was weak as she whispered two words through gritted teeth, unfilial son. Mother, please don't say such things, Yi Yuna said. Clinging to Shunji's sleeve with one hand and supporting her belly with the other, her voice was trembling, but her words were like adding fuel to the fire. In the future, this entire family will depend on my husband. If you calm down, we can all live in peace. Most of the servants had gone out to search for Mingyu, so there were few people left in the hall. Through the gap in the door, I saw two pink figures approaching from a distance. My hand moved faster than my brain. I raised my hand and slapped Shinji as hard as I could. If I didn't do it now, I might never get another chance. Slap! Shinji spun around and fell into Yi Yuna's arms, clutching his face. You should count yourself lucky you're pregnant, I hissed. Otherwise, this slap would have landed on your face. Shinji glared at me, his cheek bright red. Yi Fanghua, I am the only male heir of the Shun family. How dare you treat me like this? I'll divorce you. Oh. What a lively scene. A voice sounded behind Shinji. Everyone turned to see a strange maid standing there, holding a little girl's hand. Nanny Wang pushed Shinji out of the way and rushed forward, lifting the little girl into her arms and bringing her to mother-in-law. It's the young master, your ladyship, the young master is back. What are you doing here? Shinji demanded, staring at the maid with his red, swollen cheek. I heard young Master Shun was missing. So I bought him and brought him back, the maid replied casually. Bought him? Mother-in-law asked, her voice trembling with shock. Hasn't this nanny heard? The maid said, her eyes sweeping over the crowd. When the young master was abducted by the human traffickers, he suffered a lot. His hands and feet were tied. And they even changed him into a little girl's pink dress. The traffickers said their employer had paid a fortune to send him to a faraway place to be sold. I spent a lot of money to buy him back, she added, holding out her hand. I won't do this for free, I expect to be reimbursed. The maid walked up to me, her face twisting into a look of grievance. "Miss, I missed you so much. You sent me to the countryside estate in a fit of anger, then called me back with just a snap of your fingers, making me do all sorts of things. Shoutsuei, you've worked hard, we'll talk about this later." I cut off her attempt to claim credit. Turning my gaze to Shinji, "Shinji, you're truly ruthless. What nonsense are you spouting? I didn't sell him. You failed to keep an eye on Mingyu and let him be abducted by human traffickers. How dare you blame this on me?" Shinji raised his chin and shouted at me, but there was a flicker of guilt in his eyes. Feeling the condemning stares of all the servants in the mansion, he could no longer contain his anger. He rushed at Shoutsuei, raising his hand to slap her. "You lowly bitch." Slap, a crisp sound echoed through the hall. Shinji stumbled backward, clutching his face, and fell to the ground. Shoutsuei rubbed her red hand, looking distressed, while I secretly rejoiced in my heart. He who strikes first enjoys the thrill of the slap. "Grandmother." Mingyu scurried over to mother-in-law on his short legs. Throwing himself into her arms, mother-in-law hugged him tightly, tears of relief streaming down her face. "It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back," she whispered, patting his back gently. "You ungrateful beast," she suddenly shouted, turning to Shinji with a face full of rage. "You even dared to sell your own blood nephew. If you get tired of looking at this old woman in the future, will you drive me out too, now that Mingyu is back?" "Things are better," she said, her voice cold and resolute. "The mansion has a male heir again, and our family is whole once more. Someone, throw these two lawless, unfilial wretches out of the mansion. From now on, they are forbidden to set foot in the Shun mansion ever again." Mother-in-law had truly hardened her heart this time. Shinji could never be the master of the Shun mansion again. Everything in the mansion returned to peace, except that Shoutsuei became increasingly clingy. Every day, she whimpered about sacrificing herself for me, making all the maids around me praise her loyalty and devotion. Why didn't Shinji enjoy the benefits of that aphrodisiac incense? I asked her privately. "Oh, miss," Shoutsuei giggled, covering her mouth, "if I tell you, it might ruin your noble image, but that incense was really effective. Even Coachman Wang said it worked wonders. He begged me to give him some." "Ahem, I always knew my Shoutsuei was clever," I said, pretending to be serious. "Of course," she replied proudly. "When you sent me to the countryside estate to wait for the right moment, I knew I was entrusted with an important mission. But I heard that while you were on the estate, you spent every day flirting with the farmers' daughters. They even came to complain to me. I was just practicing my skills." Shoutsuei defended herself. "Look at Shinji, I had him completely bewitched at first, didn't I?" Yuna gave birth. Shinji came to the Shun mansion with his wife and newborn child, demanding that the gatekeepers let him in. "What young master?" the gatekeeper sneered. "The old madam said she's had a hard life. She gave birth to 2 sons. One died for the country, leaving behind the young master. The other died of a severe illness, cutting off the family line. Now, the only master in our Shun mansion is the young lady." Mingyu pulled me to hide behind the door and peeked out. "As long as the 3 of us live well together, that's all that matters," he said solemnly. Shoutsuei, with her mouth stuffed full of grapes, mumbled indistinctly, that's right, how could we forget our Shoutsuei?" I laughed. "The 4 of us.